How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. It looks like we are continuing our research of VR and, well, mind reading, if you will. We're looking into a bunch of fictional science and stuff. It's a good time. I love this sort of stuff. I really liked this stuff back in Steins Gate. I had no idea what was going on, but it was a good time. And also, there was one more thing at the end of the previous episode. It's sort of like we predicted the future in a way through a delusion. Like, what happened in the delusion wasn't exact, but the events that occurred in the delusion were pretty spot on. And that was with Rimi heading out to go to the store or whatever because she was thirsty. She wanted a drink. So that happened in the delusion. It ended up happening in real life, but it didn't seem forced. It's as if we predicted the future. We didn't make up the future. That's sort of what it seems like. I decided to do some more research on mind reading while Rimi was out on her run to the store. I turned toward the PC and noticed that Grim was in the chat room calling for me. Oh yeah, he is. You there, Nightheart? Hey, Nightheart, I know you haven't left your house today. Want to chat for a while? I've got new info. Nightheart, come downstairs. It's dinner time. What the fuck? I sighed and entered the chat room. Interesting. You can actually see what's in the chat before you join it. You're finally here. You took way too long, Nightheart. My mind's been going, whose eyes are those this whole time thanks to you. Damn it. What does it even mean to go, whose eyes are those? You just wanted to say that. Every time I see those words, it scares me. What's your new info? NewGen stuff, of course. It happened. The fifth murder. I felt the same dark terror I always felt, but I also felt confused. I had felt sure Shogun and Yua were going to come after me next, but instead, they'd gone after someone else. Of course, it was hard to say if I should be happy about that or not. Want to know more? It's on the top page of Taboo News, which I'm assuming is a spin-off of Yahoo. You'll find it easily if you look. When today did it happen? They found the body last night, but the victim died the day before.
Mate.
Hold on, I need to finish reading. This is another crazy one. You see, they took... Okay, now I understand the hang on. They took out the guy's brain. I panicked as Grimm started to give me the details without any warning. I'd already heard and seen enough disgusting stuff. I didn't want to even hear about it. If I did, I might end up imagining it happening to me too. I didn't even have my D-sword yet either. But Grimm continued, oblivious. And here's where it gets really scary. How do you think they died? Malnutrition? They survived losing their brain. My body shook with fear. I pulled my knees close to me and wrapped my arms around them. I didn't want to hear any more, just please leave me alone. My HP was already at 0. They might have been stuck like that for over a week. They were in something like a state of brain death. So with no brain, they can't eat or drink. So their body just rotted away from malnutrition. Atchan already named it brain dead, they're calling it. Those guys picked the best names, and here's the funny part. The guy was a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist losing his brain. Talk about ironic. A psychiatrist. Looking at the words made my heart race. Maybe I was overthinking things, but I didn't want to know. But part of me felt like I had to. Well, here we go. I hesitated for a long time, but finally I clicked the link about the brain dead story at the top of Taboo News. Oh, that's the guy. That's our guy. What does it say here? Fumio Takashina, age 41, a psychiatrist at Tokyo General Hospital, was found collapsed on a Shibuya street early on the morning of the 23rd. Police have stated that he died from malnutrition. Mr. Takashina's skull had been cleanly cut open and the brain removed. The police stated that there was a possibility that the body had remained alive after the brain's removal in a state similar to brain death. Investigations revealed that Takashina had been absent from work starting the 10th of this month. Shibuya has been the subject of national attention since last month, when a series of bizarre murders called the New Generation Madness began. The police are treating this murder as potentially related.
なんてことだ。なんて。
The victim's name was... Yeah, I've already read this. Fumio Takashina. It was Dr. Takashina. Dr. Takashina had been killed. They were taunting me. Shogun was clearly taunting me. He'd killed Dr. Takashina, the man I was counting on to help me, just to scare me more.
そんな。助けて、誰か助けてくれ!
I screamed. My head felt like it was tearing itself apart. I was going crazy.
やだ死にたくないよ死にたくないリミ助けて
I looked around the room for Rimi. I kept looking and looking and looking. She wasn't here. Why wasn't she here? She'd left to go to the store. How could we, how could we not remember that? I mean, come on, she just left. I fell to the ground, head in my hands.
僕を助けてリミ助けてよどこにも行かないで頼むよ
Oh, there was an answer. I gasped and looked up, and Rimi was standing right next to me, holding a bag from the store.
リミ
She was back. Relieved, I stretched out a hand. Rimi crouched down and took it with both hands. The last time I touched them, Rimi's hands were cold, but now they were so warm.
ここにいる。私はここにいるから。怯えないで。
God damn it, even I would break down right then and there. If an anime woman told me that, that's it. That is it. I am done. Like, if she's evil, I'm dead, straight up. Rimi smiled gently at me and wiped my tears away with her fingers. I was really pathetic. Crying, screaming, being afraid like this in front of a girl. But Rimi said that she'd be with me anyway. Right now, the only thing keeping my mind from shattering was this warmth. I didn't want to let go of this hand, not until I had the D-sword. She's our D-sword now. Something very strange was happening at Miyashita Park in the depths of night. Whose eyes are those? 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 Okay, I'm getting tongue twisted. A large group was huddled in the middle of the park. There were at least 100 people there, probably more. Most of them were in their teens, some were in their high school uniforms, while others were girls wearing fashionable clothes. There were boys wearing otaku-style glasses too, and even ganguro girls, a rare sight these days. From a distance, it looked like some kind of local event, but if you got up close, you'd realize just how strange it was. Everyone was looking down at the ground with blank stares on their faces. There were so many people here, but nobody was talking to each other. They were just standing there unmoving. Everyone was smiling a little as they mumbled and muttered to themselves. They were all endlessly repeating the same words. Whose eyes are those? There was no emotion in their voices. The words came out of the mouths of 100 people, flat and toneless of a monk reciting a sutra. Of course, there was almost nobody else in the park, probably because they didn't want anything to do with this strange crowd. The women cutting through the park on the way home from work, the old ladies walking their dogs, they all turned and ran when they saw this bizarre sight. There was one man, though, who was watching them carefully. He seemed to have some involvement with the group, but he was standing a good distance away. He was wearing an outfit that would have fit right in Akihabara. Plaid shirt, jeans, beat-up sneakers, fingerless gloves, and a red bandana, with a huge green backpack on his back. He was badly overweight, and his shirt buttons seemed like they might burst at any moment. It was late October, so the weather was cold, but he was sweating and constantly wiping his forehead down with a hand towel. He seemed worried about something, as every few seconds he would look down or look around and check over his shoulder. Between these checks, though, he would let his shoulders sway and grin with joy. There was another sound in the park alongside the strange chanting coming from the group. It was the sound of some kind of machinery, and it was coming from his backpack. Another teen came into the park. This one, a teenage girl in an unbuttoned blazer. She walked right toward the rest of them, showing no signs of fear at the strange chanting. Her long black hair flowed in the wind with every step she took. For some reason, she had a half-eaten popsicle in her hand. What is with her and ice cream? The text just said it's cold outside. This is not the weather for that. The group ignored her completely. They were lost in their own world, endlessly repeating the same phrase over and over. The fact that they ignored her didn't seem to bother her at all. When she got close to the group, she suddenly stopped. She stood for a moment, eating her popsicle with an air of indifference. You could hear the sound of crunching ice coming from her mouth when she took a bite. When she finished her popsicle, she looked at the stick and then grunted in frustration and threw it on the ground. I don't think she won. Her gaze was as sharp as she examined each individual in the crowd.
Oi, なんだよお前。
The man with the backpack screamed as if he couldn't take it anymore. The girl, Sena Aoi, had noticed that he was the only person paying any attention to her. She snorted derisively at him and then suddenly crossed her hands and stretched them out in front of her. The space around her hands seemed to blur slightly, and the fuzzy outline of a metallic pole began to appear out of thin air. It passingly resembled a hoe, or maybe a shovel, but it didn't really look like either of them. It was a sharp blade that split just above the handguard. The blur faded away and the weapon became solid. Sena grabbed it tight with both hands. But that wasn't all. Both ends of the blade she was holding, as well as the space off to its right side, began to glow with a blue light. More metal parts, appeared in the glowing space, just like before. Then, with a heavy clank, they fused themselves to the first blade. In the end, they formed a ring, and a long trail of light stretched out to its right. A long blade, split as if in half, appeared alongside the light. What had started as a sort of hoe or shovel had now become a massive sword. Sharp and elegant, pure and destructive, terrible and beautiful. The impossibly large weapon was now held tightly in Sena's hands. The man with the backpack didn't react. He simply frowned and stared at Sena.
関係者じゃないだろ。あっち行けよ。
The tone of his voice, which was high-pitched for a man, was arrogant and brash. He waved a hand, shooing her off. Sena quietly opened her mouth to speak.
お前が責任者か。
It was more of a rhetorical question than an actual one. Her eyes were locked on the man in the backpack. He started to get scared.
答えろ。畑野はどこだ。
Who? The man went pale and stepped back, but didn't answer her question. The crowd continued to murmur whose eyes are those without showing the slightest bit of interest in them. If anything, it seemed possible the crowd didn't even see them at all. Sena and the backpack man were both staring at each other. The first to look away was the backpack man.
誰だよそれ。例えしてても教えないけどな。
Sena fell silent, swinging the sword around to her front and taking the fog stance. She bent her knees and leaned forward. Now what?
誤解するな。
The sword glowed again. But instead of the pale light it had been at first, it was now red-violet. Oh, she's doing something. I don't know what, but she's doing it. There was a sudden sound like a woman's high-pitched scream. The air shook. That wasn't any sort of metaphor or simile, The air was physically moving. The space itself had begun vibrating, centered around Sena's sword. The blade's red light had become so intense that it was hard to look at. Sena let out a small breath and then she gritted her teeth hard. And the noise grew louder. Lightning bolts raced from the blade, as sonic wave blasted the air itself. The vibrating sound stopped immediately afterwards, but the blade was still flashing red like a pulsing vein. Sena slowly pointed the sword toward the man with the backpack. The crowd around them, which had been ignoring them thus far, finally took notice. It seemed like they'd regained their senses because they ran from the park without knowing what had happened. Sena ignored them, keeping her eyes fixed on the man with the backpack. The man had been indifferent before, but now he was very afraid. His face was pale and he was slowly stepping away from her, shaking his head as if to say no.
待って、俺は畑野なんてやつ本当に知らないんだ。ただ指示されただけ。
誤解するなと言ったはず。
Sena ignored the man's pleas.
質問したのはただの挨拶代わりだ。お前が何を答えたって、それを壊すことに変わりはない。
There was a fierce light in her eyes. The man with the backpack screamed pathetically before he turned and ran. But the direction he'd chosen was right toward the stampeding crowd. With nowhere to run, he froze. By then, Sena had already leapt towards him, closing the distance in an instant. Because this is anime after all. God damn. God damn, hold on. God damn. Alright, her strike was quick and powerful. So strong and so fast that it was hard to believe. It came from her frail body. She swung her blade in an arc, slicing through the man's backpack and destroying what was inside. The impact blew the man backwards. He fell onto the ground, curling up in a ball and shivering. He didn't have the strength left to run. He'd pissed himself in fear, alright, and a damp spot was forming on his pants. What a guy. Whoever the fuck this guy is, what a man. Sena walked over to him, showing no interest in the man himself. Instead, she looked down into what was left of his backpack. There was a machine inside, shooting off small plumes of sparks, and it looked something like a bulky modem, but now it had been smashed to useless pieces by Sena's sword. The loud mechanical noise emanating from it a moment ago was now nowhere to be heard, excuse me. Nozomi. We've heard that multiple times. She whispered this name to no one in particular. There was hatred in her voice, and look at that logo right there. I don't know if that's familiar. I really don't know. Alrighty. As autumn grew deeper, the air got colder. It was hard to believe that I'd been wearing short sleeves just a while ago. The sky above me was hazy, like its colors were starting to fade. The leaves at the park were brightly colored, though. Maybe the trees were stealing the color from the sky. I looked up at the sky and jammed a toothbrush in my mouth. The nice thing about the base was that I had the whole roof to myself without worrying that anybody would see me. The sink was on the shipping crates outside, which made it rough when it rained, but on days when the weather was clear, I always brushed my teeth outdoors. I rubbed my sleepy eyes as I brushed my teeth, remembering what happened yesterday. Rimi had stayed with me until late at night. She'd even held my hand for the hour or so it had taken for me to calm down. She'd gone home without saying anything else without anything else happening, though. Excuse me. A boy and a girl in the same room for hours, and nothing romantic happened at all. If I had the conversational skills necessary to make something happen, though, I would have had a girlfriend ages ago. If anything, I was disgusted at myself for hoping something would happen at all. Rimi was trying to help me purely as a friend. Rimi offering to stay with me was one of the few things even keeping me together. Having that support made a huge difference. Despite the shock of Dr. Takashina dying in the brain-dead murder, a day later I was actually feeling fairly stable. What was up with that sexy Rimi, though? She was way too real to be just a hallucination. It was incredibly sexy, even just thinking back on it. I hadn't really stared that much, but I had even seen the wrinkles in her panties. As a self-proclaimed panty meister, what the fuck, of figures only. Oh, okay, there we go. I could state that they were incredibly realistic. A mere delusion couldn't recreate that level of detail. Whatever you say, man. Wait, that wasn't what mattered here. The power to project delusions into reality. Did it really exist? Was Shogun after me because I had it? If I did have that power, memories from when I was young came back to me. The day I hadn't been able to go on the field trip, the day I was the only one who didn't get in the accident. The bus had crashed and all my classmates had gotten hurt. My teacher, Mr. Saito, had died. I had seen the images in my head so clearly. I could see every detail. Was that really just me seeing the future? If maybe that wasn't me seeing the future, but just my delusion. And what if I'd made that delusion a reality? My whole body felt like it was about to start shaking. I wrapped my arms around myself to keep my body still.
だとしたら僕は
I was a murderer.
おはよ
Rimi was there. She was incredibly cheerful for it to be this early in the morning. Seeing her smile made my shaking stop. It was so strange. Normally I couldn't stand being around 3D girls, but for some reason, being with Rimi made me feel better.
う。迎えに来たよ。なんでポッカーンってしてるの？
Oh, right. According to my schedule, today was a school day. When I told Rimi about that yesterday...
迎えに来てあげるって言ったよね。
Right. Thanks to Shogun, I was afraid to even go outside now. That was why Rimi had offered to stay with me. She was keeping her promise.
まさか本当に来るとは思わなかったとか？ビシッ。ふっふっふ。残念でした。こう見えても私尽くすタイプなんだ。
Damn, if only I was like that. She gave me a mischievous wink. Was this an H game? Nah, it's not. I'm sorry, guys, it's not. In the real world, your female classmate didn't come to pick you up on the way to school. It would have been even better if she'd come into my room when I was still asleep and woken me up. But you can't have everything, I guess. As I lost myself to my silly delusions, Rimi suddenly looked up at the sky. She was looking at something far away again.
冬の空が色あせたように見えるのはどうしてだと思う？
Sunlight contains a spectrum of 7 colors, the same colors seen in the rainbow. For those 7 colors to reach the human eye, they have to pass through Earth's atmosphere. When that happens, a phenomenon called scattering occurs. Basically, the light collides with the molecules in the air and gets bent in random directions. And when the light bends in random directions, it starts flying all over the place. The more it scatters, the easier it is for it to enter the human eye. The colors which scattered most easily were purple and blue. That's why the sky was blue. Okay, actually, this is like a lesson for me. I'm very smart. But Rimi's answer was very different from my dull, scientific one.
きっと寒くてみんなが下を向いちゃうから青を望む人の数が減っちゃうの。
Rimi had said something like that before, but when was it again?
だから寒くても上を向いて歩こう。
Her cheerfulness would kill me in reality. I quickly changed and Rimi and I left the Kurenai building together. Together, going to school with a girl was something normal people did. I was still scared of Shogun and Yua, and I hated them and wished they would die. Oh my god. I meant it too. It wasn't just something I was saying, but thanks to them, I was able to experience what a normal person's life was like. Maybe I could be a little grateful. Just a little. Or at least I tried to make myself think that way. But when I did, Dr. Takashina's face came back to me, and any joy I felt slipped away. It might have been my fault he was killed. Dr. Takashina was connected to me, so Shogun had killed him, either as a warning or as a way to provoke me. I was overcome with fear and worry. Little by little, I was starting to fall behind Rimi. I took a quick glance at the back of her head. What kind of look was on her face? She was humming a song. It was a song from the Phantasm CD I'd lent her last night. Her steps looked light and carefree. We weren't even talking. How could she seem so happy? Looking at her helped my worries a little. But to be honest, why was she being so nice to me? Was the answer inside my memories of her? The ones that I didn't remember? So interesting about this fifth NewGen case. I think this is the first person that is directly connected in some sort of way to Takumi. Unless all the other characters that have died before had some sort of connection that we are totally unaware of, even if it's like the most minimal of connections. Who the hell knows? When we got to school, I sent her on ahead and went to the bathroom. This was another survival technique of mine. I really appreciated that she was doing all this for me, but going to school with a girl in tow would mean standing out too much. In particular, there was no telling what the dokyuns in my class would think. So to make it look like I'd come to school alone, I slipped into the bathroom and killed some time. This turned out to not work, however. I left the bathroom trying my best to act natural and kept my head down as I walked on the side of the hallway toward my classroom. Before I got there, though, I could see Ayase walking toward me. Our eyes met and her lips curved into a slight smile. Ayase was famous. I didn't want to risk attention by talking to her, but she stood in front of me, blocking my path. I didn't have a choice.
Takumi, あれから警察はどう?
I put a hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Why would you talk about something like that with all these people around? I quickly looked around. This was incredibly bad. Ayase was a local celebrity. It was rare enough for her to come to school, but not only that, she was the vocalist of the famous band Phantasm, and pretty to boot. Everyone, boys and girls both, were interested in her. Normally, there'd be no way she'd ever talk to a loser like me. The gazes of the people around me were causing me physical pain. I wanted to run away.
剣を探して。君はそうしなくちゃいけないのよ。
She always said the same thing whenever we met. There was a chance Ayase was on my side, but having her say the same damn thing every time was getting on my nerves. I wanted to find it too. I just didn't know how.
ヒントが欲しい。君はどうやってあれを手に入れた？
いつの間にかそこにあった。
That again? Was she just screwing with me?
気づかなかったわ、最初は。でも、ちょっとだけ見方を変えたら、わかった。もしかしたら、匠にももう見えているのかも。見ていないだけで。
What the hell did that mean? Talking to Ayase was always exhausting. It was like some weird Zen Kwon thing.
剣はちゃんと探してるよ。僕だって絶対手に入れたいから。
I sighed as I answered, and then the gazes of the people around me grew too much to bear. I ran past Ayase and into the classroom. What I found there only made me feel worse. Misumi and some of the other boys were staring at me in shock. Crap, they'd seen me talking to Ayase. This was bad. I didn't know what they were going to say. If I was lucky, they might just make fun of me, but there was also the chance they might do something a lot worse. I looked down and headed to my seat, trying to make myself as small as possible. Please just let everyone leave me alone.
Oi, oi, oi!
My prayer went unheard. Yeah, that was quick.
てめえいつの間に今岸本と話してたよな。
The most I could do was shut up. I couldn't look up.
岸本が誰かとまともに会話してるとこ初めて見たぜ。一体どんな手使ったんだよ。
Please don't talk so loudly that the rest of the class can hear. Please just leave me alone. I'm not going to try and date ISA or anything. It's not like I'd have a chance anyway. So please just calm down.
なあタク、教えろって。
大地
Rimi interrupted.
落ち着け。タクが困ってるでしょ。
悪い悪い。
Misumi dropped his voice low and patted me on the back. I sighed a little without looking up. Rimi had saved me again.
で、実際のところどうやったんだ。
Misumi was, as always, a man who thought only with his little head.
も
Get it?
う大地ってほんと節操ないよね。そのうち彼女さんに刺されるんじゃない？
心配すんなって。俺こう見えても各種ケアは欠かさねえから。
何それ。
なあタク、教えろよ。岸本とはどんな感じなんだ。
Misumi was rubbing my shoulders. He wouldn't let the subject drop. I looked up, afraid. Half the boys in the class were whispering to each other and glancing at me. This was bad. They were still looking at me. Don't look at me. I felt the prickling at the back of my neck. If the Dokuns came after me, I was finished. My life would become a hell of bullying. What should I do? Run, cut class, and go home? But I couldn't go home alone. The thought of running into Shogun or Yua was too much for me. Have Rimi come home with me? She'd said that she was the caring and devoted type. She did say that. If she wasn't lying, she'd skip school alongside me. I just needed to get out of here as soon as possible. Suddenly, there was a loud noise at the entrance. Everyone turned to look at it. Oh. It was the transfer student. The rat. She was rubbing her tear-stained eyes and bowing in apology to everyone she could see. As always, she was completely silent. I kind of forgot she existed. We haven't seen her. I have no idea what the fuck her purpose is supposed to be so far. Well, I guess I could say that for a lot of people, but, you know, still, we haven't seen her. The entire classroom also fell silent at this sudden development. What had just happened?
今の見たか。
見た。一人で勝手に扉に激突してたね。
やっぱ梢ちゃんは可愛いな。
I had never seen seen somebody so klutzy outside of an anime. She even sounds like a
ま
rat.
た泣いた。大丈夫かな。すごい音してたけど。
Rimi whispered, worried, and then headed to the transfer student faster than anybody else. She was pretty nosy. I was going to say noisy. She was pretty nosy from the look of it, or maybe kind was a better word.
うお、リミに先越された。待て待て、梢ちゃんを解放するのは俺だ。
Misumi shouted as he raced after her. Kozoe's accident was, for me, good luck. All the boys who'd been staring at me were now looking at her. Good job, transfer student. But I happened to hear what some of the girls near me were saying.
うざ。何あれ。狙ってやってんじゃん。
Just a few faint whispers. Ah, high school. That's exactly how I remember it. Full of gossiping and other bullshit, to be honest. Oh, here we go.
デッドスポットと呼ばれる、通常は使用されることのないいくつかの神経チャネルが存在することをご存知ですか？
I'm so glad we're still hearing the chattering of the classroom.
それが第二世代と何か関係があるのかね？
そういうことになります。簡単な実験をしてみましょう。これをご覧ください。
子供騙しを聞いている暇はないぞ。
重要なことですよ。この図には左側にドット、右側にリングがあります。
Yeah, that's what I see.
では、左目を手で覆って見えないようにしてください。
Ah, shit. Okay.
そのまま右目だけで図の左側にあるドットを見つめてください。
I don't think I can do that in read, to be honest. I'm sorry.
ドットを見つめる目の端の方にリングも存在しますか？
Yeah, I
い
can.
くらドットだけを見つめていても、隣にあるリングがついでに見えているのは当然だと思うがな。
では先生、ドットだけを見つめたままモニターに顔を近づけていってみてください。
I can't do that.
隣のリングは
I
どうな
can't
り
do
ますか？
that. I have my microphone like right here in front of my face. There is no getting closer to my monitor. It's just not happening.
ほう、これは
興味深いね。
右側のリングが消えた。そうですね。
Well, yeah, because your vision is like, it's a peripheral vision thing, right? It's in your peripheral. The closer you get to the subject, the further away everything else gets, to the point where things are going to eventually disappear. That's common sense, right? Then again, I'm not doing this right now, so I don't know.
これは視界が狭まったからではありません。その証拠に、さらにモニターに近づくことで、リングはまた視界に現れます。
What?
これは一体どんなトリックだ？
いいえ、トリックの類ではありません。普段は使用されていないですが、人間が元から持っている目の機能の一つですよ。これはデッドスポットと呼ばれ、
Dead spots.
ノアによって人間の視界の中に無から有を作り出す際に使用するチャネルなのです。
Okay, you know what? I have to try this. Hold on. I have to try this or this shit doesn't work. This shit doesn't work. I'm sorry, but like I'm not getting anything here. I'm like I literally did it and like I don't know. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong. Maybe I'm not being patient. Maybe that's my problem. Oh well. You know, it was fun to try. Maybe I'll do it on my own time. I don't know. Maybe I just need a bigger monitor. More reason to spend money. Okay, we'll end it here. I think this is a okay length episode. Mayhaps. What is the takeaway in this episode? Fifth NewGen murder. The Brain Dead. Which is a very interesting one. Not that they haven't been interesting so far. They've been very creative. Yeah, I really don't know what to make of what is happening with these killings, because if it is another personality of Takumi, how the fuck did we commit it, and why? Why does the other personality, if it is another personality of him, why did he want to do that specifically to the doc? Is it to mess with him? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe the doc knew something about Takumi? Something else is going on here. It's like everything is happening for a reason, and I feel like it will eventually involve the Takumi we've been following. But that's my best guess. Thank you all for watching this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.